Gail Vanderteam's dreams of settling down.
She wanted to have a family, but she was very reserved.
And Stephen Dews is just what she's looking for.
They both were kind of introverted, sort of, stay-at-home type people.
They just do their own little thing. They had a plan. Let's save enough money, we'll buy a house, and we'll get married.
But even the best laid plans can fall apart.
I am worried about our money.
Can you imagine how angry you would be if everything you had worked for was gone?
Love may be blind and marriage bliss, but divorce is murder. The suburbs of New Jersey are a good place to raise a family. So much so that 25-year-old Gail Vanderteams is still living at home with her parents.
She was a homebody. She really didn't go out much. She stayed with her couple of friends that she had, and she was happy with that.
Fresh out of a relationship, she's ready to settle down.
Her friends were also in relationships, and she wanted to be there too.
Hello?
Hi, may I speak with Gail?
Speaking.
Hi, Gail, it's Stephen Dews.
I don't know if you remember me, but we met at a party last year.
Shy guy, red shirt.
Yeah, wow, you remember.
Yeah, I do remember.
Listen, I was wondering if maybe you
Want to go on a date sometime?
I would love to.
Really? Great.
That's perfect.
They seemed like they were, in sync because they were the same. They were very quiet. They weren't partiers. They just liked to be by themselves and do their own little thing and movies.
I did like the movie. It's just the ending. They could have avoided all of that if they had just
Planned ahead?
Exactly. A little planning
Goes a long way.
It most certainly does. Yeah.
Soon enough, their spark turns into flames. Within a few months, Stephen is a regular at Gail's parents' place.
We were pretty family-orientated because my mom was Italian, and my father was Dutch. So my mom, the Italian side, was like, okay, everybody's got to come over to the house. You got to come here, you got to eat.
Steven, go ahead. My mom's not gonna kill you if you don't like it. There you go. Bon appetit. And then he said, "What napkin? I used my hands."
Gail, stop. You're gonna scare Steven.
Nah, he's all right. Steve, you okay?
It was hard to get to know Stephen, but he was not easy to join the circle. If you're doing something, he would kind of be on the outside looking in.
I think maybe in the beginning, didn't know how to take us.
You'll get used to us.
I think that his family was never a family like that.
It doesn't surprise anyone when the couple starts talking about the future.
They had a plan. Let's save enough money, we'll buy a house, and we'll get married.
And soon enough, their dreams begin to come true.
Stephen was doing well. It's kind of a cash business, so, if you're hustling, you can make a good amount of cash.
Stephen has a good job running a food truck.
This house is perfect for a couple, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Do you know what would make it even more perfect?
Yes, of course, yes.
There we are. To a bigger, happier family.
Oh, I can't wait to get started with the wedding plans.
Salud.
My mom being Italian, You know, you gotta have a wedding, gotta have the big wedding.
My mother's favorite line is like, go big or go home.
But there's a problem.
Look, I understand, but this is our wedding. Our day. Do you really want a big affair with hundreds of people? A lot of them strangers?
I don't want a big party either, okay? But this is my family, and we have our ways.
No. They have their ways, and what you have is a fiancé who hates big parties.
The wedding is off.
What?
Steven says it's turning into Mom's party and not ours. We both want something small, and we want it right away.
Psychotherapist Stacy Kaiser and forensic psychologist Brian Russell don't think this is the best start for the couple.
I'm concerned about the fact that Steven makes a choice to completely call off the wedding instead of trying to have some kind of a compromise or conversation. And this concerns me because he's in love with Gail. And so he's ditching Gail. He's basically saying, I don't want to be with you anymore if this doesn't happen.
What I see here concerns me about their future when they actually do get married. Steven may be somebody who thinks more, I just don't like this, and it's here, I'm gonna dictate how it's gonna be, and she can be on board or not. And if she's not, that's fine. But it's gotta be my way, because that's no way to have a marriage.
Steven does get his way. The wedding is small and intimate.
It was just immediate family, maybe a dozen people. My mother had little sandwiches and a cake, and that was it. Simple.
I can pretty much tell you that my mom was not happy.
But the couple doesn't care.
They were happy. They were like two peas in a pod. They were kind of the same people.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
And then Gail announces that she's pregnant.
Gail was ecstatic, having a child.
We were all very happy about that. Gail was very happy. She was so wonderful with my son, and she wanted to be a mom too.
But Steven is harder to read.
Didn't talk much, so you really had to kind of guess.
So, shower? Oh, yeah, of course we're having a shower. A big, happy Vandertunes shower. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Oh my God.
Okay, so who should we invite?
Nobody. Absolutely not. No. Gail, we agreed that we were gonna keep this small, right? Remember, we talked about this.
But we are welcoming a new member into the family. And in my family, we do that with a shower.
Gail, wait. Gail.
Gail was no pushover. She was meek, you thought, but she would argue back.
Despite their rocky start, by 1997, Gail and Steven are the proud parents of 3 kids. But Steven remains on the sidelines.
He didn't do a lot of things like we did. A lot of times you would find him off by himself or with his kids.
Let's break into teams and play some b-ball. So we'll have you here and you here.
He's also very strict.
Okay, but hey, can we let's not put the hoop right in the middle of the street there. Let's just move it off a little to the side. It's too dangerous. Can we do that right now, please? Right now. Thank you.
He had rules. When Steven spoke, you had to listen. And you can see that in his children. And when he made a rule, it was law.
All right, right there. That's perfect.
Okay. All right, let's go.
We were always, I'll bet you can't make that shot. I'll bet you can't do that. Let's see if you could do that. Well, the girl across the street said to one of my nephews, I'll give you $1 if you make that shot. And Steven went into an absolute uproar.
Whoa. What do you think you're doing? You can't do that. You can't just bet. Where are your parents? Huh? Didn't they teach you that gambling is wrong? It's wrong.
What's
you hear
going
me?
on?
She was trying to teach our son how to gamble.
How to gamble? They're just kids.
Look, I don't care, all right? I don't want any gambling, ever. Is that clear? No bets. None.
They're just playing.
She could, voice her opinion, but I don't think it really mattered.
It might not matter now, but soon it will change everything.
She would get angry sometimes.
And I can't pay for them all by myself.
She probably had some stress going on for sure.
Gail and Steven Dews are now homeowners, married, and working towards their future. When all the kids are in school, Gail heads back to work.
They had flexible hours, so she could be home when they got home. And she did that for pretty much the whole time they were in school.
Life is looking good.
They seemed to be happy parents, buying their home. It was a nice house, bigger than what they had. Moving on up.
Wait. Look, I have an idea. Why don't we take a group photo? Okay?
All right.
It seems as though nothing can go wrong.
They were all healthy and happy, God bless.
Okay, big smiles. Ready?
They had a nice little family life.
But more than 17 years into their marriage, trouble is on the horizon.
Stephen was having issues with his eyes due to almost like a diabetes thing, so he had to watch what he ate.
You can't drink that.
Then stop buying them. I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize. Just, I want you around for a while, okay? Hey, whoa.
His condition deteriorates so quickly that the only option is surgery.
Good. Okay. Just, watch out, because there's a bunch of... Watch it. Yeah. Oh.
I'm good.
When he had to end up having the surgery, she was very upset by that because he had to really lay low.
The operation is a success, but his eyesight is not good enough to drive.
So he had to stop working, all of that, because he could have lost his eyesight.
What are your plans for today?
I don't know.
Yeah, when we got married, we made a lot of plans.
Uh-huh.
And those plans cost money. Steven, they cost money and I can't pay for them all by myself.
I can't work, Gail, okay? I can't work if I can't see properly, right?
Your new home, 3 high school kids, I'm sure that would put financial strain if you weren't bringing in any money and I was the only one doing it.
Stephen's health crisis can have a major impact on this family. First of all, we already know that he likes to be in control, and not being able to control what's going on with your body and losing your job can be really traumatic for anyone.
I would describe Stephen as a guy who has kind of a narrow comfort zone. We've seen it with other people, having other people around, and so when people get pulled outside of their comfort zone, they tend to want to do everything they can to veer back into it. And it sort of uses up whatever resources they have to cope with things. And it tends to put them sort of on edge, to make them irritable.
And then on the other side of it, we have Gail, who does seem to try to accommodate him and try to make him happy. And yet, how do you make a person happy when they are so miserable because of something external that's going on with them?
Then, a little over a year after his operation, Stephen finally lands a job working for a building supply company.
It was like a window and door manufacturing company. He was at the behind the desk in sales.
A second paycheck eases the tension. But not for long.
I heard years ago that he liked to play blackjack, but then this was more like a gambling circuit, more like the, poker in a hotel room somewhere.
The Stephen she married, I don't know if he was a gambler, but this guy was. And all of a sudden, everything they had worked for started to change.
Things then get worse.
The market kind of crashed. People weren't really building as much. Their sales went down and people were getting laid off, and he was one of the first.
Months go by.
Hey, you don't get to tell me how to spend my money.
Your money?
Whatever. Our money, yes. Well, you have a problem with that?
No, we are not doing this. Not in front of my family.
Fine.
fine, though. Let's just go. No, we just got here. Come on. I am staying.
Gail.
How could they not argue about, get back to work, help me, come on. I'm working, trying to support the family here. You'd see tension, and you'd ask Gail, is everything okay?
Everything's fine.
But the tension can't be repressed forever.
I need to see you right now.
Now?
He was losing large sums of money.
Can you imagine if everything he had worked for was gone?
After 22 years of marriage, Stephen and Gail Dews are on a downward spiral. Stephen's out of work, and Gail is out of patience.
Again?
Again what?
You were out playing cards. Again.
After I went to look for work, yes, I played a game or two, but, it's not a big deal.
Not a big deal? You're gambling.
No, not really. I mean, they're just small bets here and there. It's just a game.
Hey, I was talking to you.
No, you were nagging me.
I'm not nagging. I am worried about our money.
There's nothing to worry about, okay? They're just small bets. I'm just having some fun.
Yeah, well, at least one of us is having fun.
Being the sole breadwinner, I'm sure she was resentful. That's not what she signed up for.
I am working full-time, Stephen, and I'm taking care of my parents. It is a lot for one person, okay? It's a lot.
And what, that's not nagging?
No, it isn't.
I think Stephen was perfectly content with the fact of living by the small means. He was okay with that, but I think that my sister wanted more. When she signed up, she thought she was getting more. And I think it took a toll on her.
And then tragedy strikes. Gail's mother is in failing health.
I would go there in the morning before work, and then my sister would take the night.
But on the night of May 4th, 2006, everything changes.
Hello?
Gail receives a call from Stephen.
She's sleeping.
Stephen said, she's sleeping, she's sedated, you don't have to stay here.
Okay. See you soon.
Little does Gail know, this will be the last time she sees her parents alive. A fire erupts in the middle of the night. Her parents are in critical condition.
The whole family gathered and we waited, and that's when they told us that she did not survive the fire.
Gail's father dies 6 days later. The family is devastated.
You don't think something like that's gonna happen to you, where both your parents basically die within a week.
I never really questioned her about it or anything like that.
You can look at Stephen asking Gail to come home when she's taking care of her parents and think, wow, he's being awfully non-compassionate towards Gail or the parents. He's being kind of bratty and selfish. You could look at him and go, maybe he's being reasonable if she's spending an excessive amount of time over there. But what you can say for sure is that he's treading on some dangerous ground.
And that says a couple of things to me about Stephen. It tells me that he's either missing her terribly, he is insecure, or that his controlling behavior is escalating. So that in itself is going to trigger some emotion within Gail. And I have to believe that Gail is either angry at Stephen, or she could be angry with herself that she listened and actually did come home, or both.
The resentment of that is going to probably be around for the foreseeable time.
Heartbroken, Gail and her siblings gather to sort through what was salvaged from the house.
It was very emotional for all of us. There was my mother's jewelry.
I have Mom's rings. They mean a lot to me.
She's like, I have the rings Mommy was wearing, and I'm keeping them. And I'll fight you for them. And we were like, okay, if that's that important to you, you could have them.
The house is beyond repair. Gail and her siblings decide to build a new one and sell it.
We should open a joint account so that we can all see what's going in and out at all times.
A few months later, they sell the house for $500,000.
We all got equal shares, $125,000 apiece.
The money comes in especially handy for Gail and Stephen.
I'm sure my sister was struggling, trying to keep the house afloat and, 3 kids. So I'm sure that money helped her tremendously.
But that doesn't keep Stephen away from the card tables.
I don't want you gambling anymore.
You're telling me what to do?
You can't just sit around here all day and not work and gamble all of our money away.
He was losing large sums of money due to his gambling.
It has to stop, Stephen. It has to stop.
After 27 years of marriage, Gail and Stephen are empty nesters.
You've got a big house, and you've got this relationship with a husband, and you have to kind of get to know them again.
Luckily for Gail, she can focus on something else when she gets a new job with her longtime colleague, Fred.
I said, hop in your car, come to my office, your desk is ready, go to work. And it's exactly what she did.
But her issues with Stephen follow her.
There would be phone calls from Stephen.
Hello?
And before the phone call ended, she was in tears.
I need to see you right now.
Now?
Yes, now. I'm outside.
Outside?
Yes.
Come out.
Stephen, what are you doing here?
I'm here because you don't answer your phone.
From my office window, I could see him berating her in the parking lot to the point where I had to go out.
Why do I
Stephen,
deserve
I am
this?
working. I am busy.
I understand, but when
Answer
I
the
call,
phone.
you answer
Okay,
the phone.
Fine. I'm sorry. Fine.
I banned him from being on my property.
I'm sorry, okay? We'll talk about it later, okay?
Was he always there because he was controlling and making sure where she was and what she was doing? Could be.
Just go, please.
I tried to talk to her, but she would clam up and not talk about it.
When you look at Stephen's controlling, monitoring, surveilling kind of behavior, that is all behavior that's born of anxiety. The person doing that is worried about something, and it seems like increasingly Stephen is becoming worried about Gail's interactions with other people.
I look at this behavior and I add it to the fact that he had her come home from her parents' house, and I begin to see that his sense of control and his insecurities are escalating. It is possible that he's getting concerned that maybe she's having an affair, but the fact that she is the only breadwinner and he's risking her job over his need to keep an eye on her tells me that he is beginning to escalate to a point of grave concern.
I have to get out.
Like out? Oh my God, are you okay?
I was totally in shock. I was very surprised when she told me that.
Can you give Gail a hand?
Yeah.
Thanks.
I would think, my sister was pretty aggravated that he wasn't working. I flat out asked her. I said, so you're selling the house? Where are you going? You gonna buy a new house? What are you doing?
Maybe what she's doing is leaving.
Yes, I'd like to take it out and put it in another account.
Except that may not be an option.
She thought it'd be an easier out, an easier an escape.
I can't find my wife.
When he woke up, Gail wasn't there.
Gail and Stephen Dew's marriage has reached the point of no return. His gambling and unemployment have plunged the couple into debt and despair. With the kids out of the house, Gail wants to sell it and rent something smaller and cheaper. It sells for $385,000, and they move to a less expensive neighborhood. Gail's family assumes that she is preparing to leave Stephen.
She thought it'd be an easier out, an easier escape, that she didn't have a house together. All that stuff would have been taken care of and she could just walk away.
Yes. Yes, I'd like to take that money. Yes, I'd like to take it out and put it in another account.
Gail's state of mind at this time seemed that she was looking for an opportunity to move out of the relationship.
Especially since Stephen's gambling continues to spiral out of control.
By the time they sold their home, they had a pretty tidy nest egg, over $300,000. And pretty quickly, that dwindled because Stephen gambled a big chunk of it away. Can you imagine how angry you would be if everything you had worked for was gone?
It seems like the end is near.
Hello?
But then, some happy news.
We're gonna be grandparents again.
Really?
Yes!
She decided to wait it out because her daughter became pregnant. She didn't want to upset the cart while her daughter was pregnant, and she said, you know, she could wait it out.
Wow.
When I look at Gail, I see a woman who maybe has resolved in her mind that she's really leaving, or somebody who maybe is hoping that, okay, I've made the decision, but I'm gonna put off executing it and see if something doesn't happen here that makes it unnecessary for me to actually follow through.
And so it's totally possible that Gail has decided this new grandchild might be the thing. And she's just hoping that the man she married, fell in love with, and had children with is going to change. If she waits for too long, it could be detrimental.
Then, in March of 2013, Stephen and Gail decide to go antiquing, and then for a hike.
Just a quick hike. It's a bit cold.
But it isn't a quick hike at all. There's no sign of the couple until a confused Stephen appears the next morning.
Once Stephen arrived at the convenience store, he appeared to kind of walk around the store. He has some scratches on his face, and his hands and jeans are very dirty. And then when Stephen came up to the counter, he indicated to the clerk that...
My wife. I can't find my wife.
Immediately, the authorities are called.
So we were walking along the edge of this cliff. You know, it wasn't like on a regular path. Go, it's okay. It reminds me of our first date. Just go take a look. And I fell. And I hit my head. And when I came to, I couldn't find Gail anywhere.
Okay, did you call anyone?
I mean, I was unconscious, and my keys and phone, they were gone. And when I came to, I couldn't find them.
He was very evasive as to where it happened, and he did not want to go back to saying that something bad had happened there.
With Stephen reluctantly in the lead, police search the area. Stephen is taken in for questioning.
So we arrived in the afternoon around 3 o'clock.
And then they hiked until maybe around 7.
It's 7 o'clock. Yeah,
which is way more hours than one could imagine spending in this park.
That's not the only unusual detail.
Stephen tells the investigating state police troopers that where he was with Gail when he slipped and bumped her was an area that was approximately 40 feet upstream from where Gail was actually located at the bottom of the ravine.
If you threw a rock directly from where they were standing, it wouldn't naturally fall where Gail's body was found. It would have to go backwards.
And to top it off,
Stephen was acting weird.
What happened was I lost my car keys, right? So I walked around up until I found the store in the morning, until I made it to the store in the morning.
He wasn't acting like somebody who was anxious to find his wife.
Did you try looking for her at any point? Did you try to call for help?
He waited 14 hours. I mean, if that's somebody you love and you didn't know where they were, you would move mountains to find them.
It's enough to raise suspicions, especially when they learn that Stephen had been seen that very same morning.
A Pennsylvania state trooper was actually traveling on Route 6 and observed a man walking along the road. That individual turned out to be Stephen Dews, and he made no attempt at all to indicate in any manner that he was in need of any help or assistance.
Even though Stephen's version of events is not quite lining up, he's released and returns to New Jersey, while the Pennsylvania police open an investigation.
Because of the suspicious nature of Gail's death and where she was found, the Pike County coroner ordered an autopsy.
Meanwhile, Gail's family is in shock.
I said, something's not right. It's March. What are they doing walking on a cliff?
In the days that follow, Gail's family pressed Stephen for information.
What he said the most was, I don't know what happened, and that was what he said over and over and over again.
I tripped and I fell. I think I bumped her. I don't know what happened.
I don't get it.
In March, in Pennsylvania, it's 20 degrees at night. Where are you in this little light jacket? Where are you all night? You didn't fall down and hit your head and stay in the woods, because you'd be dead. You'd be frozen. You'd have hypothermia. So what happened? He was just dead-eyeing me because he knew that I was after him. Like, I was like, dude, you did it.
By this time, the coroner has submitted the autopsy report to the DA's office.
Gail died of blunt force trauma causing extreme bleeding. But also noted during the autopsy was a bone in the neck area, which is known as the hyoid bone. And because that bone was broken, they could not rule out strangulation.
Gail's death is ruled a homicide. But how do they prove it?
And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, where?
What do you want?
What was he doing? A lot of it just didn't make sense.
When Gail Dews' body is discovered by authorities at the bottom of a cliff, her death is ruled a homicide. Police are suspicious of her husband, Stephen, but murder charges can't be laid on speculation alone. The police appeal to the public for help. One woman comes forward claiming she noticed a car with New Jersey plates in the otherwise empty parking lot at around 4 p.m. Another witness claims that Stephen's car had been moved during the night, contradicting Stephen's story.
I lost my car keys, so I was walking around.
What was he doing? A lot of it just didn't make sense.
Investigators have to wait for the spring thaw to search for physical evidence in the area where Gail fell. While they wait, the DA's office assigns officers to monitor Stephen's movements. Almost immediately, they inform the family that Stephen is pawning off jewelry.
And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, where? And he gave me the name of the pawn shop. I got in the car immediately and went right to the pawn shop.
Karen recognizes one of the pieces.
Was my mother's wedding ring, and I just said to the man, that's my mother's, and I have to have it. but he made me buy it.
When the weather warms up, police are finally able to execute a search. Close to where Gail's body had fallen, they discover a major piece of evidence.
They found parts of Stephen Dew's cell phone. And that was significant because Stephen had been insistent that he had not gone down to where his wife, Gail, was at the bottom of the ravine.
But it's still not proof that Stephen killed his wife. Nor are the DNA results from Stephen's clothes that day.
On Stephen Dew's jeans was a mixture of DNA. And in that mixture of DNA was both DNA of Gail Dew's and DNA of Stephen Dew's.
It's impossible to say how or when Gail's DNA ended up on her husband's clothes. So far, all the evidence is circumstantial. Then, Stephen himself gives the DA's office the break they've been waiting for.
Stephen comes over my house.
What do you want?
It's about the joint account.
What Stephen's talking about is the joint account that Neil and Gail had set up after their parents' fire.
We should open a joint account.
I didn't know that Gail kept the account open.
And what's hers is mine, and I want what's mine.
Look, I don't want you coming here anymore.
I don't care what you want. I want my money.
You're not getting the money.
Neil tells the authorities. The information gives the DA's office probable cause for a search warrant of Stephen's finances, which had never been done before.
Well, in any homicide case, one of the things that an investigator looks for is motive. Why would they want this person killed?
That's when the DA's office learns about Stephen's gambling. After the sale of their house in October 2012, Stephen and Gail have a little over $385,000 in the bank. At the beginning of January 2013, that amount is down to $183,000. $200,000 gone in a mere 3 months.
It appeared that that money was being squandered away by Stephen in gambling.
Then, on January 28th,
I'd like to take it out and put it in another account.
Gail had transferred $165,000 from that account to the joint one she held with Neil. 3 days later, the same amount was transferred back to her joint account with Stephen.
It appeared that Stephen discovered that that amount had been moved out of his control and would have forced Gail to move it back into the account where he would have also had some control over that money.
At the time that the police obtain the records, Stephen has a balance of $221 in his account.
I have to get out.
Stephen would have come to the conclusion that his wife was preparing to leave him.
She was starting to assert her independence. She was probably going to ask for half of their assets if they had any left. I think he wanted to get rid of her. He wanted to get rid of the financial problem that he saw coming down the pike.
The DA's office finally have a case to take to trial.
Based on all the facts and circumstances surrounding the case, it was a reasonable conclusion that Stephen Dews had pushed his wife Gail Dews to her death.
On May 13th, 2015, Stephen Dews is arrested for murder.
Pure joy. I actually went to the store and bought champagne, and we were very relieved and happy.
Just a quick hike.
Authorities believe Stephen is responsible for his wife's death.
Go take a look, it's beautiful.
Whether she died immediately or whether he strangled her is impossible to prove. What is clear from the DNA on his clothes and his own cell phone pieces is that Stephen Dews had contact with his wife as she lay at the bottom of the 100-foot ravine.
we would have asked the jury to come to the conclusion that Stephen had in fact taken the life of Gail Dews by pushing her off that cliff and then going down there and not aiding her in any way, leaving her to die and perish there on March 10th, 2013.
But the case never makes it to trial. In October 2016, more than 3 years after his wife plummeted to her death, Stephen Dews pleads no contest to voluntary manslaughter and is sentenced to 8 to 16 years in prison.
If he hadn't been a gambling addict, I don't know that Stephen would have murdered Gail, because I think that the primary impetus for the murder was probably financial. That said, I think it's very important for us to note that addiction just screws up somebody's priorities to the point where the money is more important than their spouse's life, which is a very sad, sick reality.
There are a lot of addicts that don't go and kill their wives. And so while I believe that Stephen's gambling addiction was connected to his desire to kill her, what I also believe is that he is putting the responsibility for the misery in his life on her. Maybe he feels like she's been too wrapped up in work or too wrapped up in her family, or not caring enough about him to the point that she moved their family money into a private account, that she's thinking about leaving him. All of those things are check marks against Gail and affronts to Stephen, and I believe that that's why he killed her.
How do you do that to somebody you're married to? How do you do that to your family? The woman you love, the woman you got kids with. How do you throw her off of a 99-foot cliff to her death?
Gail will be missed by everybody that had ever come in contact with her.
She was such a good person. She was a good person. She was a great mom.